I had my whole career starting and just hit a crazy roadblock. Unfortunately, had a brain tumor diagnosis. 2019 had an incident with a seizure at Martinsville Speedway. All of it was just kind of done. And then all of a sudden, getting thrown in as the NASCAR's youngest team owner in 2021. I was excited to return back to asphalt super late model racing. I hadn't done it in a long time. That was right at the end of the race. So I thought, you know what, this isn't right. And it just really, made me mad. Shoved him a little bit. They grabbed me and threw me on the ground. And that's just over the line. JoJo, the singer, she's a very, very polarizing singer. Everything she does is for shock value. Look at Trump, right? Everything he does is just bam, headline, headline, headline. You're gonna polarize a bunch of people.
Matt, thank you for joining us at Essentially Sports. It's great to connect and hear your insights. You have had an extensive and impactful journey in NASCAR, not just as a driver but as a team owner as well. That's not where it ends. Mental health advocate. That's something you never hear from a NASCAR driver like advocating. So if there's some insight that you can give about this, that would be brilliant, especially about your racing journey.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. No, it's been an interesting journey for sure. So I, kind of grew up with the dream of being a NASCAR driver, and was fortunate enough to go through the ranks and get to live out my dream for a while, and then unfortunately had a brain tumor diagnosis. So kind of had my whole career starting, and just hit a crazy roadblock with that. And really was told by some people that they didn't know if I could race again. So after that point, that was 2016. I was able to rejoin into racing later on that year with the help of a bunch of neurologists. And had a couple of years back in NASCAR, and then in 2019, actually 5 years to the day today, had an incident with a seizure at Martinsville Speedway. So, it was really an interesting period because I had been a rookie in the NASCAR Cup Series, and I just signed an extension of a contract after that as well, and really thought my whole career was taking off. And then all of a sudden, all of it was just kind of done in a tenth of a second. It was just over. And so, I really never thought that I would race again after that. And I kind of went through a big identity crisis because since I was a little kid, it's all I had wanted to do. It's all I had wanted to work towards. And here I am sitting going, I don't have a job. I don't know what I'm going to do. I moved from Ohio down to North Carolina to go be a race car driver. I was in a different relationship back then, in a marriage that I'm no longer in back then. So it went through all this crazy stuff. And then on top of that, all of a sudden the pandemic hit in 2020 while all of this is going on. And it was tough because, like I said, I didn't really know where to go. I didn't really know what was going to happen. I was searching for just about any job in the industry, whether that would be from a competition standpoint, media, PR, spotting, whatever it could be, just to find something that would land. And, again, right at that point, COVID hit, so a lot of those positions kind of stopped hiring, and really, everybody scaled back like crazy. And then that summer, I guess I should backtrack a little bit. So, I became the owner of a NASCAR Cup Series team. But I'd always had an eye out for the ownership model in NASCAR. I had explored things in 2018 and 2019 to see what the charter system was looking like. Just to know, with the charter system being in its infancy, back then they were a lot cheaper. I saw a lot of upside with it. We knew the next gen car was coming, so all of a sudden it kind of lit up this eye of opportunity. And then in the middle of 2020, an opportunity came up to go pursue buying a charter and team with a 32 car, leaving the sport. So this was just so crazy for a couple period of years, and then going from being at the track as a NASCAR driver to going from going to absolutely no involvement in the sport, going through the pandemic, and then all of a sudden getting thrown in as the NASCAR's youngest team owner in 2021. So just a crazy amount of events going on. The relationship that I talked about had a tumultuous time and ended up getting a divorce. So just all these giant life events in 3-4 years, really stacked on top of me for a long time. And so it definitely was a lot of soul searching, a lot of just trying to figure out who I was, what my purpose was, and fortunately, I really found my footing in that time period following.
You're one of the youngest, NASCAR Cup Series team owners in, the entire NASCAR history. Like, how was your experience with Live Fast Motorsports, especially with, you worked alongside BJ McLeod and Joe Falk. So, can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, it was a very interesting period. Obviously from the business model, we kind of everybody knows at the end of it that we ended up selling and sold the charter for the largest amount in NASCAR history to this point. But it was never about that in the beginning. We never had an exit plan. We wanted to be in the sport for 5, 10, I shouldn't say 5, 10, 20, 30 years and really build a program. What we did not expect in that time period was we knew the next gen car was coming. But in 2021, we could go and race in the mid 20s, like 25th to 30th place, and out of a 36 to 40 car field, that's respectable. There's a place for us to be in there. We felt like we belonged. But when the next gen car came, it was such an investment, and we knew that part was there. But what happened was it was such an investment to get your cars better, to buy more equipment, to the engineering really, really changed in that time period. Because before, you had guys in the sport that worked on our cars and worked on things that you knew where the truck arm split was going to be, where to put your wedge and track bar and how to manipulate the splitter and do things that, from a competition side, that we've all known for a very long time. And some things work, some things don't, but, we really just lacked in the motor department a lot of places. But the next gen car came along, and this is a car that nobody knows how to work on. That whole first year, everybody is just searching like crazy. And you saw the first 4, 5, 6 weeks of the year where, people are just trying to hang on because at the same time, we had a giant supply chain problem to where teams could not get cars. And that's just where the industry was sitting for everybody. I mean, not even in racing, for everyone, because of, again, just coming out of the pandemic. So we kind of went into the survival mode for 2022 because we had to see, can we make it to the track, until we can get more cars that NASCAR would release. And then on top of that, we're not performing well. And we're not competitive. We're all out in left field, basically. The field's driving off, and we're 5 seconds back. So while it closed the gap from us, in 2021 at Vegas or Texas or whatever, we might finish 5 to 7 laps down. Now you're finishing 3 laps down, but to go from 3 laps down, you're now, instead of being 29th, you're 36 sitting dead last, and that was hard. From a morale standpoint, from a business model standpoint, because you're just kind of scratching your head going, okay, where do we got to put the money? How do we keep sponsors happy? So, in 2023, we switched over to ECR engines and joined the Chevy program, and that helped a lot to keep us, a bit more competitive. They helped us out on the speedways quite a bit with, just information and. While it wasn't a full alliance, it definitely helped us just be more competitive. And, at times we had races where we had decent speed. We brought on drivers like Josh Balicki, who was a lot of fun to work with on the road course side. He's an incredible road racer. Anthony Alfredo stepping in, Sheldon Creed. So all of a sudden, you have a lot of these guys coming in to drive the car that are younger guys coming up through the sport. And that's always fun. I've always enjoyed that part of it for myself, coming up through teams, kind of being groomed and taught how to drive things. And now seeing other guys in there get a chance to be in a car that's not a full-time position, so it's a bit hard for them to jump in. But you see at COTA, Josh was running 12th for a while. We were up to second at the Chicago Street Course for a little bit. And so that was a lot of fun in that year. But when that year was going on, all of a sudden these charter negotiations begin. There is massive interest from outside sports figures, investment groups, and all these people trying to break into NASCAR because the sports properties, whether it be the NFL, NBA, NASCAR, so on, they really started to have a giant value, and people really got hot on this idea that you're buying kind of a diamond in the rough in NASCAR for a discount price. You could buy a NASCAR charter for tens of millions of dollars, and Michael Jordan's selling the Charlotte Hornets in the NBA for $5 or $6 billion. That's a big difference, or $3 billion. So it all of a sudden opened our eyes to go, we need $5 or $6 million a year more per year to be competitive. We don't personally have that. We made our money racing, and that's all we had. We didn't have a big investment firm behind us. We didn't have Penske truck rentals. We didn't have all this stuff, Hendrick cars. And we don't have that. We're making our money week to week trying to just survive, and not making a lot of money, just trying to survive. So all of a sudden we're sitting here going, oh boy, we're getting calls and calls and calls and calls about selling our team. I mean, it was literally every week I got a call from somebody trying to buy our team. And so we had to sit back and say, okay, what's our number? If we're hearing all this stuff and we're saying no, 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 we got to have a real conversation to say, okay, we're getting real offers. What's our number to where we have to go look at this and ultimately step away? Because yes, we love racing, but at some point you got to put your business hat on and say there's going to be a point to where we got to sell this business, which is tough because you work with people and employees every single day and take care of their families, and also we like doing it. It was a lot of fun, but you have to, as a businessman, sit back and say what's right for the future. Can we sustainably do this more? And really the answer was no, that we were going to be kind of left behind. The engineering and the development of the cars was going too fast for us to catch up with. And, also there's a bottom three charter rule where you can't be in the bottom three of points for 3 years in a row, and we had already been there for 2 years. So was it realistic we're going to bounce out of that in 2024? No.
You mentioned charters, and the first thing that came to my mind was, the current controversy we have with Michael Jordan's 23XI Racing Front Row Motorsports lawsuit they have against, NASCAR. Whose side are you on? Like, do you believe that, they made a right decision, filing a
It's
lawsuit?
Yeah, it's an interesting deal because this has been going on for 2.5 years. It's nothing new. It just finally got to the point where they said that's enough. We got to go sue. I truly believe that in the behind the scenes, we have the RTA, the Race Team Alliance, and NASCAR, and we had a task force committee there that would go, on behalf of the RTA and go communicate and go back and forth with NASCAR about the new deal. This was a very interesting process, and especially for us because we were just such a little fish in the pond, and we got the big teams out there going to try and do this, and we're kind of just there. We kind of get toted along in whatever direction, and so I think from NASCAR's standpoint, they've done things the same way for a long, long time, and their point is we're going to be here for a while. So if you want to join in and keep on going, just keep on doing it. I really think if we would have been, and this is just my opinion, this has nothing to do with any other partner in the team's position. This is just my opinion. I believe that if we would have been there on that Friday and they said, you've got to sign this by midnight, we would have had to do it. Just like Richard Childress said, he's got 300 employees, he's got sponsors, he's got people to take care of. I don't have any other money. I have to do this because you take that charter away, you take that revenue away, we're sitting ducks. All of a sudden we're losing $4, $5, $6, $7 million a year. We can't economically do that in our position. So what's interesting is I would have had to have signed that agreement. However, I do believe that 2311 in Front Row, that they're onto something. I do believe that there's more equitable revenue to share across the teams. I do believe in the permanent charter system. And I do understand NASCAR's point sometimes that they want to tie it to a TV deal because they're scared that if it goes past that, they're going to be kind of stuck with something. And there's going to be some give and take in there. And I don't know if they'll ever get to a permanent charter. But I agree with wanting to have that from the team side. The feasibility of it in NASCAR, which is not really a league, but they want to kind of be a league like NFL, NBA, NHL, whatever. I think it's hard to get that done in the landscape of how they run things. If you were to start it from scratch, I think you absolutely could do it. But it's like a lot of things. You've already done it for a long time. You've had a system. NASCAR knows what revenue they're getting for the next 7 years. So I understand why they do it. I don't like it, but I understand why they have that point. But from the team side of 2311, that's an important deal. And when you look at Michael Jordan and Bob Jenkins, they can sit back and say, "Hey, we have enough business on the other side. We're willing to risk it to still be able to pay our employees, to still keep going to the racetrack. And we know our partners are good. We can go fight this." And I find that admirable. And I'll say Curtis Polk has really led this charge from day one, from 2311. And he is a bulldog. And from the very beginning, he ruffled some feathers within NASCAR. And sometimes you're sitting there going, "Oh boy, this is going to get interesting." And obviously Denny is very, very outspoken. I think it's interesting with him because obviously he's driving for Gibbs, who signed the contract with NASCAR, and he owns a team who is fighting that contract as well, and having a lawsuit. So as far as whose side I am on, I believe that I will say, I'm very thankful for NASCAR. I wouldn't be in the position I'm in today without NASCAR. I would love to return to NASCAR. But I do agree with what 2311 and Front Row's pillars are, that they want the healthy teams. I like the permanent charter idea. Again, I don't think it's ever realistic to get it done. That's just my opinion. I think there should be more revenue sharing. And I think that, the teams should have more of a seat at the table when it comes to schedule decisions, when it comes to, just being able to get the teams funding and being able to pay better drivers, hire better drivers, all that kind of stuff. When you have a seat at the table, you're able to help make those decisions. So I agree with all that stuff. But, there's some of the areas that, the RTA did not like. For example, the driver incentive program for them promoting NASCAR, they didn't like that. I personally like that. So I think I kind of sit in the gray area between the two. But I lean more towards the teams, what they're doing, just because I do think there needs to be a fundamental change. And you look at how many teams have had to come in and exit. The issue is that you're so dependent on sponsorship and OEM help. So if you don't have Ford, Chevy, or Toyota giving you a few $1,000,000 in research and development help on there, you have to pay for an alliance. An alliance costs a couple $1,000,000 a year to be anything decent. So if you don't have backing to go in, it's not we'll use the Stewart-Haas numbers, $25 million for a charter. It's not the $25 million investment. It's really a $40 to $50 million investment, because you have to do that plus invest it year over year after year. So the teams want to say, "Hey, we want to get to a point where we can at least break even or get close." If you're $1, $2, $3 million off of getting close, you can make that up in sponsorship or winnings or whatever. So I fully support the idea that teams should be there, and they're way too far off right now. There's no way you can compete and keep on being healthy and sustainable, because like we saw with Kyle Busch, if that one chief marketing officer there comes in and says, I don't really like NASCAR, that's what, $15-20 million worth of sponsorship gone. And now one of the top most talented drivers in NASCAR doesn't have a ride and a sponsor. Like, are you kidding me? It's way too dependent on one person making a decision that's outside of your control, that's not even in the sport. And that's a dangerous position. And that's why I support the teams going in there and saying, "Hey, we've got to get more revenue coming to teams to where we know that when M&M's leaves, that we can't just shut our doors." Like, that's too. I can't think of the term here, but it's too. There we go. It's too volatile to have that happen, and that happens with a lot of people. Even if it's a $1 million sponsor, that's a big boost for a small team.
Do you think that JGR made a mistake, letting Bush, go to RCR? I mean,
I don't know if they had a choice, because they
that's
offered, yeah, they offered Kyle a contract. It was just less money. So I think because of RCR, the way they were able to kind of renegotiate some stuff and have some funding coming in, and working on some of their own charter deals, I think they were in a position to go hire him, give him a bigger salary. I think Gibbs would have liked to have kept Kyle there. Obviously, there's some turmoil and weird drama kind of going on at that time, but I ultimately think it would have been better for both of them to keep on going. I just think that when you've been paid a certain amount for a long time, that gets cut by 75%. It's kind of a slap in the face to somebody who was one of the best drivers we've ever seen in the sport. So, but they put all their eggs in one basket and trying to get Oracle as a sponsor, and when that failed, there was nothing there. And so that's a mistake by the team for sure to go all in on one. But I mean, when you have 6 months to figure it out, what are you supposed to do? I mean, they're just stuck in a tough spot. So yeah, I don't know if they had a choice because I don't think they could match what Kyle Busch was worth to get paid.
After he left, after Eminem's left, as a sponsor, I think that was the end of road for him with JGR. So that was an unfortunate incident that happened.
Yeah, because
But
if
his
M&M's doesn't leave, he's still there.
with RCR, do you feel that they are not using the full potential with Kyle Busch? Like, since you
Oh
have.
yeah, I mean he's stuck to the performance of the cars right now because when you see Austin Dillon and Kyle have a good car at the track, typically Kyle outperforms Austin. It's not a knock on Austin. Obviously, he was great at Richmond, but when they have their stuff together, you go see Kyle win races. Unfortunately, they just haven't had cars that have been good enough very often. So then, you run into the later part of the season where Kyle probably overdrove a couple races in a row and ended up crashing out where he could have had solid top fives, top tens in there. And, I really think you start to see that little bit of the gap of him missing the playoffs came down to him really trying to get everything out of that car and more. And, that's not something Kyle Busch typically has to do. He can get everything out of the car, but typically he's in top tier equipment. So when you have to overstep those bounds to try to go catch up to cars that are just better than you, because the teams are just better than RCR was, it puts yourself in a very dangerous position. Because if you drive at 95% of the car's capability, you can run very, very strong races. But when you go from that 95 to 100%, that 5% difference at the end, that's where you run into incidents because you're pushing it to the absolute limit. And sometimes that works, and sometimes it doesn't.
I know this is a very sensitive issue. A month back, I was just scrolling through social media, and we have been following up on your career for like past many years. So I actually had the notification on, and I saw a video just pop up regarding the Toledo Speedway fight, and that was a very unfortunate incident that happened. I know you have given up a lot of comments regarding it, but would you still like to, elaborate a few things that happened that day?
As far as the fight, is that what you said? Yeah. Oh boy, that was that was an interesting night. So yeah, I was excited to return back to asphalt super late model racing. I hadn't done it in a long time. So yeah, spent a lot of money to go to these races, and it's personal money. Yeah, it was a frustrating day because I had a really fast car. It was a 200 lap race, and I think I'd started 14th or 15th. I'd driven up to about 8th or 9th at like lap 30 or 40. And yeah, it was a bad deal. Basically, the guy passed clean. He got behind me and essentially just misjudged a corner and took me out. And to me, it was a gross misjudgment. And later on in the race, he took out two more cars in a very similar fashion. So I'm sitting here and I'd been stuck in the infield for an hour and a half, and I'm just watching this guy, take out cars. And listen, he and I have talked afterwards. We're fine now, but so just in the moment, my thoughts. And so that was right at the end of the race, and so I thought, you know what, this isn't right, and it just really made me mad. So I went over there and I yell, hey, what the nicely heck, and kind of shoved him a little bit, and to me that's just racing stuff. I've had people come up and do the same and whatever. Um, Obviously, after that, like they grabbed me and threw me on the ground. I have no problem with that whatsoever, and I've stated that because you're protecting your driver, your family member, whatever it is for those teams. So they threw me on the ground, and that's fine. Obviously, if you go watch the video, it speaks for itself. What happens next of the guy coming up and kicking me in the face, and that's just over the line. I mean, you can't do that. No matter if you're in racing, hockey, whatever for a fight, you just don't do that. It's not. There's a reason why it's a saying of "don't kick a man while he's down." Like it's not right. And he and I have actually spoken afterwards too. He reached out and he and I had a very very long conversation, very candid conversation. So we're all good. It's fine now, but in that moment, in the days following, obviously very grotesque, not okay at all. And I think that it's it sucked to go through. At the same time, I started it, but it wasn't. It shouldn't have ended the way it did. But yeah, it was just over the line. But we've moved past it. It's just it was certainly a polarizing event for sure.
Dale Jr. actually spoke on his podcast regarding this. I'm not sure whether you're aware about this or not. He spoke about how the entire incident was very chaotic, and he was really upset with the guy who uh, kicked you and everything. But at the same time, he made a point saying that it was wrong on your part as well to enter the pit box. So, like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I haven't been around asphalt super late model racing in that form in a long time, so I didn't know what the rules were. If we parked at the end of a NASCAR race, like I'd go over and go talk to somebody, or even confront somebody, or start something, buy somebody's car there. So I think it's a different deal in these forms of racing when you come into somebody's pit, and I've learned that. But he's not wrong. I went over there and I initiated the confrontation, and that is, by the rule book for them, it is a fine, that is a penalty, and I accept that. That's completely okay with me. Would I have changed anything? I, I had a long time to think about it sitting down there. I really don't think so, because I was mad, I was upset. We junked a car. It cost a good bit of money. Cost me a good shot to go see. Like, I was really planning on this being a big return race. I'm trying to. We had a fast car. My teammate won the race, and we were showing good pace. And so I was upset. It was a home race. A lot of family and friends out there, and I can't say that I would have done anything different, because I felt like if I walked away and didn't confront it, I would have regretted it. So I don't know what the right move would have been if I didn't do that, but obviously it escalated way past where it should have. And I read that from Dale Jr. in an article. I didn't see it on there, but it just it's a deal where if you go confront people in their pits, by the rule book, it's a penalty, and I'm fine with that. But I don't know. I felt like I went over there and I started it, and I get that, but obviously went too far past that point, and kind of is what it is from there. But I think he has the right stance on that in saying, it was way too far of what that guy did, and it was also wrong per the rules and the sanctioning body and the etiquette there of not to do what I did. So dual faults, but that's why we both got penalized.
Fair enough. The fight actually, so this season, I thought that, after the All Star race, I was pretty sure that, Kyle Busch versus Ricky Stenhouse Jr. fight would be the, 2024 biggest fight. But now I feel like this one kind of compares alongside. Like, do you agree on that?
I don't know. There's such. I mean, obviously the social numbers on that and the video views and all the articles were insane. I'll be honest. I never expected it to go that far. Yeah, I did not expect it whatsoever. And what was weird was my video guy, because people ask me like, why was this on camera? Well, my video guy and I, we do like a little race recap, pretty much every race we do. So we had just finished that, and the race finished, and I was like, I'm going to go over here. So his name's Jesse, and all of a sudden I started walking over there, and Jesse's like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm going to talk this mother effer, whatever. And so he just picked up the camera, started running after me, and I just had my mic clipped on there still. So it just made this social content moment, basically. But obviously, the All Star race, it's live on television. It's a bigger viewer base there. So I wouldn't say that it topped it from a NASCAR standpoint by any means. Obviously, the grassroots world, everybody from asphalt to dirt knows about it. People still, I'm in Mississippi right now racing. People still talk to me about it last night. It's crazy how in today's world when you film something like that and it goes viral, um, for good or for bad, how many people see it and have an opinion on it.
I remember the video that you're talking about because I was actually scrolling through my phone. I saw the notification come up. I think you were walking alongside a road and you were talking about, the incident that had happened and everything. So, like, obviously, my brain went to, a research mode. I went through all the articles and everything that I could find. And yeah, it was the statement that you gave out you have a very big social media standing as well. Do you think that played a huge role in this? Because
Yes, I do think so. To be honest, it wasn't. I really didn't think before that event that I had much of that big of a voice. I guess I've spoken out about different things. I've had opinions on things. I like giving my opinions on things, whether it's right or wrong, in what NASCAR does or teams do, drivers do, whatever. I think it's fun to go, join in with the NASCAR community to get their feedback on things, to have my take on things. Because we all have opinions. We're all fans of the sport at the end of the day, so I like giving that. And so, really that was just my take on, because I had all these people responding to me, saying, press charges, do this, blah, 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 do that. And I'm just like, huh. I never really thought about this angle, didn't think about that angle, and all of a sudden this thing's got millions of views, and oh my gosh, this is going nuts, and I'm just sitting there like, oh boy, like this is taking on a life of its own that I really didn't expect or intend it to. I expected for, a couple hundred people to like it, as they normally do, and, a couple dozen comments, whatever, but my goodness, I mean, I had NASCAR crew chiefs and drivers and people I hadn't seen in 10 years reaching out to me. And I was just like, holy crap, this is insane. So I guess you know, in a frustrating way, here's how social media works, right? So that happens, that goes viral. Millions of views, people saying things, talking shit, being happy, whatever, like, cheering it on. And then we do a charity fundraiser later on that we had already planned to do. Just so happened it was the timing of that. And, a video like that's an uplifting, good video, doing good for the community, and it just crickets. And luckily, after we did the whole fundraiser went well later on. But that's just the unfortunate side of social media, that people love shock factor. And, you look at what goes viral. It's crazy things. It's fight videos. It's big explosions, big things happening fast, all the stuff. Oh my gosh. And that's what gets people to watch. But I think that's kind of a larger societal thing where, and this is not to get on my high horse about, philosophy and all that stuff, but it's just an interesting sociological thing that we see, that it's so polarizing, it's so interesting, people want to get involved in the adrenaline of it, and then when you have good stuff go on, or sweet stuff, whatever, it's just peanuts compared to the big shock factor stuff. And I'm trying to think of the girl's name, JoJo, the singer, and she is really interesting because she's a very, very polarizing singer. And my wife and I were talking about her the other day, because she said, it's all an act, right? I said, what do you mean? She goes, she's literally said that her character that she puts on everything she does is for shock value and shock factor. And I thought, oh my goodness, that is so smart, because she says outlandish things. I mean, and again, not to get political or anything here, look at Trump, right? Everything he does is just bam, headline, headline, headline. So if that's your platform, you're gonna polarize a bunch of people. And so again, bringing this back in the weave here to that video, it was a big lesson in that you can have a giant voice if you want to. It just depends if you want to be in the right or wrong way. But sometimes that wrong way can get a big reaction, and that'll get you a lot more followers and a lot more comments and stuff. but I think you just got to be careful about what you do with that.
I'm gonna quote you on this. I really loved what you said. I'm gonna quote you on this though.
Yeah.
um, Speaking about fundraisers, you're a mental health advocate as well, and like so is Baba Wallace at this point. Do you plan to work alongside him and maybe promote mental health a lot more in motorsports, especially in NASCAR? Like, have you thought
Yeah.
about it?
Yeah, I mean, I've spoken about it, on Twitter and in person and stuff about it. I think, from the mental health world, it is very interesting when you are a race car driver because while you are Superman and you walk around the fire suit and you're you walk around in this a bit of a odd status because while you're somewhat untouchable when it comes to the fact that you're a race car driver and that's the coolest job in the world and blah blah blah, you're also under the most scrutiny of any job because it's I guess it's just like other NFL stars as quarterbacks and stuff like that too. But in that profession, you have teams, drivers, sponsors, fans. And no matter what happens, it doesn't matter if that right front tire changer left a lug nut off or whatever, at the end of the day, it's your name on the ticker on the screen. So, for good or for bad, you are either celebrated or scrutinized based on the fact that you are out there that day. No matter what happens, it's 50% your fault because you signed up to get in the car that day. I mean, it's already there. So, um, as far as the mental health side, it's a tough battle. And, I worked with a sports psychologist when I was driving. That really helped me because I learned how to, really lock in and visualize the day. And it just made those other factors kind of go away. But it's a tough deal. And I think that, I've spoken out about my battles with it. And as far as walking alongside him, it's a tough deal because I'm not going to go sit there and say every day that I support Bubba in this, and I love Bubba. Bubba's great. But not everything he feels is what I'm going to feel. My story's going to be different than his story. And I think that's true for all drivers. But I think the bigger point in all this is that race car drivers are just normal people that go out and have a special ability to go do what they do. But at the end of the day, they're going to bed with their wife, their dog, whatever, and they are normal people. But they're put on this platform where they are pressured to be the best person of that ability to go do it because it's the tenth of 1% that gets to go do this because it's such a small pool of people that get to go have this job. So it's just like when you sign the liability waiver when you go become a race car driver that you can go out there and die in that car. You're also signing the waiver that even if you're okay and you don't scratch one part of that car, one part of your body, anybody in that stadium, anybody on social media, anybody that watches that race has the ability to say, that guy sucks. And you know what? You got to deal with it one way or another. And that's a lot of pressure. So you better be able to go harness that. And if you can't, it's tough. You look at Denny, right? Denny is somebody who I think ran away from that for a little bit in the beginning of his career, and eventually he just said, "Screw it, I'm the bad guy," and he can harness that for fuel. And so he loves that. He loves that energy. He's really good with that. But to look at the NFL, Deshaun Watson. I'm a Cleveland Browns fan. This is somebody who had a squeaky clean image for a while, and then all of a sudden he does terrible, terrible things. I'm not a supporter of his. And so he is somebody who thrives on positivity. He needs that foundation piece of his charitable work to go speak for him, and then he walks in the room with his football abilities. So that's just a big difference in that you have somebody like Denny Hamlin who likes to be the bad guy and people hate him, and you have Deshaun Watson, nothing about his sexual allegations crossing the path. You're just being put in the bad light. He can't go harness that. And you look at other players in any other sport, some people love being the bad guy, some people love being the good guy. But you have to find that line to where you can go, be stable enough for yourself, whether it be anxiety, depression, whatever that is. You've got to work through that, and you're going to have to deal with it one way or another. But as that transcends to other life, people feel that every day for their jobs to go pay their bills. People pay that or feel that for mental things, relationship stuff, whatever. I'm an advocate for whatever people got to do to feel better and do what they need to do, whether it's therapy, meditation, prayer, medication, whatever that has to be. to go help themselves, I'm always for that. But as this pertains to racing, it's part of the job because you signed up to be the guy that's on TV that people can either love or hate.
That's true. I think many drivers forget this part, and that might take a toll on their journey itself. Uh, okay, I have a very important question that everyone's been bubbling to ask. Your predictions for 2024 NASCAR Cup Series Championship.
Ooh, okay. Well, I think the final four we know we know Logano is going to be in there. Um, I do believe we'll see Larson in there as well. I don't know. I feel like with Christopher Bell actually showing emotion, getting mad last week, I think we'll probably see him in there. I don't know who'll be the fourth pick in there, but I do believe that my guess, just from the circumstances and how it's laid out and how he's got the momentum right now, I think I'm going to have to say Logano's going to win this year. Because they've been good at Phoenix. They've been good at short tracks. He's already locked in. They got the extra time to put the prep in their cars. Blaney was strong there last year. You look at it, and it lines up very well for them because they basically have 2 off weeks right now to where they can do whatever they need to get through there and be competitive, sure. But all they have to do right now is, at Penske, they're 100% focused on getting the 22 car to be the best thing it can be in the playoffs. And they're the first ones to have that advantage. It's kind of like having a bye week in other sports. You have more time to prepare. So, I truly think that they're going to be very, very tough to beat come Phoenix time. But I hope it's a showdown. I hope it's a competitive race. I'm not a big proponent of the Phoenix Championship race. I wish that would move around a little bit because I think it's a hard track to pass. I don't love the strategy pieces there. So that's one thing I wish speaking about the championship, I wish we could change would be Harvick had a great idea, having 3 years in Phoenix, 3 years in Vegas, 3 years in Homestead, and rotate that because you have to have warm weather races. So I would love something like that, but having it stuck at Phoenix every year, I love Phoenix, I love the track, but in my opinion, it needs to rotate, it needs to move, and it just, I don't know. It's a great city for the championship race. I just don't think it puts on the best race.
What about the drivers who are currently on the bubble? We have Denny Hamlin, we have Tyler Reddick, we have Ryan Blaney, and we have Chase Elliott as well. Do you think?
I hope Denny gets in there because I actually really want to see Denny win a championship. I really want him to get it done. I think it'd be cool. His pit crew hasn't been up to 100% par right now. That's a big detriment there. But, you got to look at the outside distractions, right? I mean, he's on this probably one of his best years of his career, and all of a sudden, all this stuff comes down from the lawsuits there. Seems a bit distracted. A couple of weeks ago, Harvick's calling him out on that, saying he's not 100% in it. So if he can lock back in and be back to prime Denny, I think he's got a shot. But that's why I would like to win the championship. And I don't know. I think that'd be awesome. But we'll see. Yeah, I really hope he makes it in. Just because I want to see, if Logano wins, it's like, oh, okay, look, Joey Logano wins the championship. There's not much of a reaction, honestly. But if Denny Hamlin wins it, people are going to go nuts one way or another. I think that's good for everybody.
Yeah, that's gonna bring a whole new. I think that might bring the old audience back to NASCAR because currently it feels like the old audience that used to watch NASCAR has been a bit distant towards the sport. But hopefully, fingers crossed, things go his way. Whoever wins. I know you're a Chevy driver, so I like assume that you'll be rooting for Chevy in manufacturers championship, or is it Toyota or Ford this year?
So, yeah, I drove for Chevy, but I also drove for Toyota and Ford. Our team at Live Fast, we had Ford and then Chevy. So I've been all over the place. I've been racing a NASCAR Classic car that's a Dodge. So shoot, I don't know, maybe I'm a Dodge driver, but no, I think for the manufacturer side, I mean, I don't know, I do lean more Chevy just because I grew up a Jeff Gordon fan, and that's kind of just what I liked. Honestly, I've always had Chevy cars. I got a Chevy Tahoe that I drive. Not to say I haven't had other stuff, but I just like it. It's my preference. So when it comes down to the manufacturer side, I don't really care. I'm more the driver's side than the manufacturer, to be honest.
Because Chevy is currently leading the point system like way ahead of Toyota.
Oh, okay.
Ford is at
And
the
I'm sorry, I don't even know the points over there.
Yeah, totally fine, totally fine. But like talking about owners championship, do you think that Hendrick Motorsports might be taking it, back home this year again? Like,
Yeah,
I think they have been
yeah.
dominating.
I mean, obviously, Hendrick's been very strong with that side of things for a while. So, again, I don't know the points off the top of my head when it comes to that. So, I apologize. If I looked at that, I could tell you a bit better my thoughts there. But, yeah, I mean, I do like it when the Final Four comes down to the driver's side and the owner side lines up. Obviously, that's nice for everybody because whoever wins, wins, and that's kind of it. It's an interesting deal because the Owners' Championship, I don't think people really knew about it much before Chase Elliott kind of had the issues there and got some light shown on that. And, when I was a part time driver over at Gibbs, they made a big deal about the Owners' Championship because the 18 car, Kyle Busch had won a bunch of races with it. We'd run pretty well with it too. So that was a big, big focal point on the Xfinity side. Because of the funding and stuff that you got from the bonuses you got from the championship there. So, I don't really think the Cup side they showed much light behind the story there until the Chase Elliott thing happened where they really wanted to highlight that of him being in the Owners' Championship. I think from a fan standpoint, I don't know how many people care about it. I'd be curious to see, a statistic on that, but it's an interesting fact within the sport, or stat within the sport, because you definitely have a lot more dollars on the line depending on where you finish. It's a couple $100,000 a spot up in the top 10 there, so definitely a big deal for the teams.
My final question: next year, will we be able to see you return to NASCAR, or upcoming any races?
Yeah, I haven't talked too publicly about this, so you'll be kind of one of the first that I talk about. But I'm working on it. So I don't think it's going to be next year, but I am working on it with attorneys and doctors to get towards a return at some point. So whether that's 2 years, 5 years, I don't know. There's no set rule book here. We're all trying to make the right decision and the right timing on this, but I am working towards a return, and I'm hopeful in 2 to 3 years that I'll be back. We'll see. It's all very, very fluid, but I've enjoyed driving a lot this year. Almost 40 races this year. Won several times in a stock car. Racing against guys like Joe Nemechek, John Hunter Nemechek, a lot of other NASCAR drivers in there. So. I've been at NASCAR tracks, winning at NASCAR tracks. I've been on the World of Outlaws side in dirt cars. I've ran the Trans Am stuff, racing against other NASCAR drivers. So there's a strong point to be made of why I can be back. The doctor side is good. It just truly comes back to the liability and insurance side of things is what it comes down to. So we got to work through that, and that's a bunch of legal jargon that's way above my head. So we're going to get that set on my side and bring it back to NASCAR, and we'll see where we end up. But I'd love to make a return. I don't really know if I'll go to the Cup Series side. Maybe I do a one-off if I do get that to go back in the 500 or something like that. But I'd really love to be back in the Xfinity Series. I feel like I had a lot of fun with that. The schedule's nice on there, and I love driving those cars.
That's great. All I can say is, we are looking forward to your return in NASCAR. And I think that's about it. Thank you so much for talking to Essentially Sports and, taking some time from your busy schedule. Uh, um,
Absolutely. No, thank you for doing this, and obviously, for your coverage, it's great to see different media covering the sport, and I think it's my first interview with you guys, so happy to do it, and hopefully we see more of you guys at track and around the sport. So thank you for doing what you do.